I just showed up and we just sit at a table and drink and look at each other for an hour, I would learn more about that person in that hour than talking. Like, talking's the distraction to me.
That sounds like a nightmare. I'm the opposite. I want all verbal.
Winners use drugs.
I don't know why I stopped listening to him. I just stopped being interested. I don't know.
I stopped being interested because he just constantly, every single episode was him getting into his same spiel about we gotta treat everyone better.
Oh,
he
yeah.
goes on it for like 6 minutes. It's like, thanks, like, cool. You said this yesterday to a different person. Like, why am I listening to this?
Well, I didn't really care about him at all. It was more about his guest. Like, if it was an interesting guest, I was into it, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, if his MMA shows I never watched, most of his like were his stand-up comedian friends. If it wasn't those two dudes, I can't remember.
Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura.
Yeah. If it wasn't them, I didn't care.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
You hate Bert Kreischer.
I hate Bert Kreischer, but the dynamic between them is kind of funny because they all pick on him, right? And I also wouldn't say I hate him. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan of his comedy.
Yeah.
But he does inhabit that space in that group of friends. Yeah. As the person that he's
the buffoon.
Yeah, he's the first person you make fun of, right? Yeah. And if someone is making fun of you, you can then make fun of that person to like reassert your place in the group, right?
It's true.
That's what he is in that group. So
yeah, and I'm with you. Like, I don't like his stand-up very much. Like, to me, it's like it's so embellished. So like what I found out on his, like, when I listened to Two Bears One Cave, he literally just makes stuff up. And so now that his wife has a podcast, it's like, that never happened. That literally never happened. And so now it's like, oh yeah, okay. And that's what drives me nuts, is like, now I know that like inauthenticity drives me insane. And so like, if someone is putting something on, or I finally remembered my fucking question. Okay. So I asked someone to tell me about this situation because they were telling me about someone in Poly, and like they were saying this person's dangerous. They've reported them to police. They, treat their boyfriend badly, whatever. And so I was like, well, what's their name? And they didn't want to tell me their name because they're in the community and vindictive and blah, blah, blah. Right. When someone withholds information from you like that, do you immediately go like, this has to be horseshit?
Yeah, I do get more suspicious when people withhold information. Yeah. Unless I can see the reason why they're doing it.
Yeah, like I don't understand why she, like, because I was telling her, like, I may come across this person. Yeah. Like, do you give a shit about me? Like, tell me who it is. I don't. Right. And I also thought, like, there's a person that I was just seeing, and I wondered if it was that person.
Well, did they offer a reason?
Their reason was just that this person is toxic and they're in the community and they have a lot of sway or whatever. And I'm like, right, but who gives a shit?
Yeah, that kind of seems
reported them
like
to police.
Yeah, true.
And so if you've actually reported them to the police, you're not exactly afraid of the person.
Yeah, but I think if I was told that, I would see that as a valid reason not to bring it up.
What's the valid reason?
That you're worried about what you're saying getting back to the person you're talking about, right?
Yeah, if she had said that to me, I would have for sure understood that. What I'm saying is, like, she didn't say that. She said, this person has a lot of power, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, right, but we've known each other for a year now. Who the fuck do you, like, why aren't you telling me this person? Like, just give me a first name. Just give me a first name.
Yeah, there's definitely context that changes how, if that is a valid reason to withhold information or not. I agree. It's a bit weird.
I think you got to turn your mic it's spun to the left.
Yeah, I've been hitting it.
I think it might be your headphone cord, but
Yeah. I
Maybe
don't,
put
I
it
don't
on-
know if I even need this.
yeah.
Right?
I was also gonna say just put it under the rocks, maybe. Like,
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, we'll try like this. If we find that our voices are sounding odd, we'll have to use the headsets. But if
Yeah.
we can do it without it, it's a lot more comfortable, I find.
For sure.
I hate it, especially if you're like this. When your voice sounds kind of muffled, it's just like you can't tell what your voice is doing.
The intonation now.
Uh,
Anyways, the reason I was thinking about this is because like the person that I was seeing, I just like wrote this, just like, oh, that was a weird. Like it seemed like a very passive aggressive like goodbye. Like she had never hung up the phone in this way.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, like, if you're this pissed. So it was like she had music on in the background or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is like the third or fourth time I've like called her on the phone when she has music or radio on, and I'm like, cool, but like, do you mind like turning that down for a phone conversation?
Right.
Like that's insane
fair.
to me. That's
Yeah.
insane to me. And so like this is the third time, and so I was just like, okay, I gotta go. Like, what else? It's like you don't want to turn it down. I don't want to keep going with this. Like your mic is picking up the radio, and I'm hearing
Yeah.
you and the radio, right? And so, anyways, just went into this like insane judgment about me, and it was just like I've never ghosted anybody. This was just like
So she told you things about you that she thought about you.
basically she's like it was like, I guess there's no we in a relationship, it's all about you or something like this. And I was like, this to me is like a natural, you're getting to know someone, you're finding out what annoys them, what doesn't annoy them, right? Sound is a huge issue for me. And she just went into this very victim-y thing of like, it makes me sad you are unable to get over the sound thing to connect with me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like nothing makes me want to cut someone out than like the...
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah,
I
you're obviously
I am
right.
no, I may not be right. Like I
Well-
showed it to Vanessa. Vanessa didn't agree with me. She's like, this isn't a judgment. Like I'd be curious to show it to you, because it's like, yeah, to me it's like, if someone says to me, I guess there's no we in a relationship
Yeah.
to a person that you've only been on 3 dates with, it's like, okay, like all I've been doing is pretending for the first 3 dates, like being into you, or not pretending to be into her, but it's like, it's generally heavily focused on a woman in the first 2-3 dates, right? Like it's like,
Yeah.
you're just asking question after question to get to know them and shit like that, right? Like when they start talking about how they can feel the pain of shrimp and all this shit, you're like, okay, if my friend Jason says that to me, I'm like, go fuck yourself. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that's not a...
Yeah. But that's the thing though, is like, that's the song and dance, right? Is like, we're supposed to like hang on their every word and try to hide our annoyances or our eccentricities as much as possible.
Yeah.
Until we've got them in our clutches, and then we go, oh yeah, by the way, I fucking hate the radio that you play when we talk on the
Yes.
phone, right?
Yes.
So what you're doing is you're just saying, no, let's put all that stuff out earlier on, right?
No, I can't be flexible on sound.
Yeah. But
it's-
so you're not doing the dance because it's too much, right?
I know it's too much. It's like, this can't be a regular thing in our relationship.
Yeah. So she has the option of, one, saying this relationship is all about you, or two, saying, I appreciate that you're trying to be genuine at this point in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
She chose the wrong one, in my opinion, right?
Well, but the other, I mean, so like the part that got me was the like, the like, it makes me sad you're unwilling to overlook this sound thing and push. She said like, the fact you can't work through this sound thing. And I'm like, okay, look, you stupid fuck. Like, that's when I wanted to lose my mind, because I was just like, you don't understand what it's like to have my brain that's hyper focused on certain, like, so the other context is, this is a person that like thinks that any essential oil will cure you, doesn't believe in therapy, doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
So I'm already like, why am I trying here? Like, this is not going to be a person I get along. Like, do you know what I mean? Long term.
Right.
But it's that whole thing of like, yeah, we're in COVID. It's hard to meet people. Why the fuck not? Like, let's see. There's enough connection, obviously, to keep connected.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the judgment about like not being understanding of her need to have music or radio on, it's like, okay, first, you never expressed you needed those things on. Like, you never brought it up. It was never like actually, I keep these things like on because it keeps me comfortable, and I have a lot of trauma that if it's silent, that really bothers me, right?
Yeah.
She never communicated any of that. And so to say that I was unwilling to like be understanding, blah, 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 it's like, you talked to me on the first date about how you don't think this is the only life. Do you think I said anything about that? It's like, to me, there was several moments in the first 3 dates that were just like me being more understanding than I ever would with a platonic person.
But on the flip side, if you think about what you did as a way of jumping past the initial part where you kind of pretend to be something that you're not, the purpose of being genuine, of being honest in a relationship, even early on, is so that you can figure out early on if it's going to work or not, right? Yeah. And in your case, the fact it doesn't work, right? It's better that you find that out now than, a year from now, you guys are living together and you're like, by the way, I really hate how loud you play music, right? Yeah. You don't want to reveal that at that point. You do want to reveal that now, because if it's a non-starter, then you guys go your separate ways, right? Right,
but that's the thing. If we made it to a year, maybe this person would be more willing to bend on an issue.
There is a dance that exists where you gradually bring up the kinds of things that you need to live your life the way you live. And I guess because you don't reveal it right away, the girl is more accepting. It seems weird to me. Like, I don't want it to be that way. I want it to be the way you do it, where you just go and you put it all out there right away.
I don't at all. This was a weird just slip up, or just not. I couldn't read her for shit. That's the thing that was going on. I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on with you. Like, I that's not true entirely. I knew the moment she came over to my place, I was like, I read body language really well. Mm-hmm. I don't read into people's messages and words very well. Like, for example, my ex, she was telling me I'm not a nice person over and over. And what she meant by that is I'm not Vanessa. I'm not Vanessa. Yeah. And so like I was talking to Vanessa about this recently, because I was just like, what was that? She's like, she was meta-communicating to you that she's not a gentle, sensitive person like me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh yeah, like, just that shit goes over my head. But like, I noticed when she was here that it was like very standoffish, like very, it's like there's trauma shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's
no. What do you mean?
Like, I pick up on weird like indicators and shit. So it's like really baggy clothes, doesn't like to be looked at. Like, I was like, there's something like I need to address here, because her body language is so uncomfortable to me, because it's not what I consider normal for a girl I'm getting to know.
So you see past issues that she's still struggling with.
Yeah, for sure.
Just in the clues that you pick up.
Yeah. Okay, and so inevitably, like, I had to be like, like what's going on? Like
Yeah.
I know, like when you're ready to talk about it, let's talk about it, you know? And like, yeah, she was like, I'm comfortable with it. It's in the past. And sure enough, like she had a terrible thing happen to her. But like, yeah, I feel like if dating was entirely nonverbal, that would be way better for me. If I just showed up and we just sit at a table and drink and look at each other for an hour, I would learn more about that person in that hour than talking. Like talking's the distraction to me.
That sounds like a nightmare. I'm the opposite. I want all verbal. I want us to talk, just say our feelings, like not really pay attention to nonverbal cues as much. Like if we want to do something together, we say it. We don't have to like show it, you know what I mean?
Oh, you see, and that's the thing. It's like I don't like to try to interpret words. So it's like rather than trying to listen for these subtle cues this girl's into me, it's like, is she doing the shit that I know is the you're into me shit?
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah. Are you getting closer to me? Are you touching your hair? All that bullshit, right? Like it's so obvious to me.
But in this situation, you misread.
No, she didn't do it.
Yeah.
She didn't do any of it. And so it's like, right, are we trying to date or are we just like, are we friends here? Like that's where I was at. And so it's just like, that's why I felt uncomfortable and I need to address it. Cause I'm like, it's cool if you just want to be friends, but like, just tell me that outright. Like, do you want me to be trying to date you or do you want me to be just friends with you?
You asked her that?
No, but like, that's what I was trying to get the bottom of when I'm saying like,
okay.
You know, is there a reason for this or is it like your body language is telling me you're just not into me?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, you had body language that you were interpreting that way. And then when you confronted her about something as insignificant as like the volume of music, she overreacted to it. It's like, that doesn't seem like a relationship you would want to pursue anyways, right?
Yes and no, because like Vanessa, for example, again, the meta communication, she's like, I told her about this, the things this girl had told me, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, yeah, she was meta communicating to you with all these, like, I'm very sensitive to animals, blah, 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 that she's a very gentle, soft person. And like any kind of conflict or whatever, like a person like me in a sense, but like just very, very sensitive. Like,
yeah. I mean, meta communicating that that's like an area that maybe I'm not as familiar with.
But you're saying you're better at the auditory shit.
I'm
like,
better
I don't make those web pieces connect. Like, I'm like, so her talking about an afterlife and like animals and all this shit, like somehow.
No. What I'm saying is I'm better at communicating, not I'm not better at talking about something that is actually talking about something else. Like I can't do that at all, right? I'm saying you talk about the thing that you want to say.
Yeah.
Be upfront and direct with it, right? That it would be my preferable way of communicating.
Okay,
right?
so when you get information from people, you don't connect all these dots. Like if they're telling me they're like into this or they reacted this way, like you're not.
If I'm connecting dots, I'm connecting it in a way that makes it seem like everybody hates me and that they're extremely bothered by my presence, by me being around, right?
Yeah.
So I have to. I'm forced to ignore my capacity to do that because it doesn't work properly, right? So I need more direct speech.
But like, would you appreciate like, and it is funny to me that we both have that inner monologue of like, everybody hates being in our, like like that's why I left MBTI, because it's just like, oh yeah, people are sick of seeing my posts. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I understand.
It's an internal thing, but like, Anyways, what was my question? I had a question there. Shit. Would you prefer if someone's like, you're really annoying in how you share your opinions? Like, would you hate,
for sure.
or would you appreciate someone doing that?
Well, I don't want people to directly comment about me in that way. Like, I don't want someone to say you're really annoying in the way you share your opinions. I want them to say, like, the way you're talking right now is really annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say, okay, well, let me try to fix that. Right. But if someone says, just says I'm annoying, then they're implying that it's an unfixable characteristic of mine. Right.
Yeah.
And
that's
like,
a
well,
go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Sure.
Then it's like, okay, well, then we should just not hang around each other. But yeah, no, I'm cool if someone says, like, that opinion that you just expressed really pissed me off.
Yeah.
In fact, if I express an opinion that pisses someone off, I want them to tell me that, because I need to address that, right?
Well, and like if they addressed it that way, to target an opinion is different than to say you're annoying, right? Like, yeah, the people that are like, you're so annoying. Like, I am probably one of those people. Like, it is probably an area that I could be better at targeting. Like, I don't like the topic you're talking about, not like you're talking about boring shit.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Like that. It is all about like delivery and what. It's fucking hot in here.
Yeah, I wore a bunch of layers because I wasn't sure how cold or warm this place would be, but it's definitely warm enough to.
Well, it's only 22, but
no, that's fine. I get pretty cold easily, so I have to come prepared.
What was the other? I had another question about direct communication. I honestly wonder if I had a better gaming system, if I would ever leave. Like, now that everything can be delivered, I think there's a good chance I have to fight hermiting constantly.
Yeah. Same.
Like, so like this like 30 degree wet, like minus 30 shit is like such an easy excuse for my mind to like, you don't have to put on pants today. Like, it's like, you're literally not even going to go shovel the snow today. Like, you don't have to do anything. But it's like, I notice my mind starts to deteriorate if I don't try to connect with people, right? Like, it's when I start like, I got to smoke weed. Like, we're just hanging out alone all the time anyway. Why don't we just smoke weed? We don't need to, it's like, just did it. And yeah, it's totally just a withdrawal from.
Well, you're less accountable, right? If you don't have any social interaction, you just start to revert, right? You're like, well, I don't really need to shave because I'm not going to see anyone.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't really need to wash my clothes. Oh, I can smoke weed. Oh, I can eat junk food. Who cares, right? Yeah. Then you meet a person and you're like, oh shit, I got to get my act together.
Well, yeah. That's what you coming over today is.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what kind of person would maintain all of the day-to-day stuff if they didn't have anyone to go see for an extended period of time. Like, maybe there's people out there that'll continue to work out daily and stuff like that, but something's going to slide.
I still do all that shit. Like, I still keep my house clean for the most part. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I know it drives me insane not to. Mm-hmm. But like, yeah, man, the temptation to smoke weed when I'm not near people that will be bothered, or there's no perceived like I have to go be around anybody. Yeah. Oh, just every day is like. Yeah.
What is it like? Why? Because weed doesn't seem that particularly great to me. Like, what is so?
Oh my god. I have a love affair with weed. Yeah. It just hates me back. That's the thing. Like, I can't do anything partial. Do you know what I mean? Like, the amount of times I've been like, all right, this is the time. We wait till 7 p.m. every day. Yeah. We have one joint. It's the greatest. We're going to keep doing that because then we're allowed to keep doing this because we have a time that we're not high, that like emotions will be processed. We'll be able to think clearly. You know what I mean? Yeah. What happens is weed is just one long emotional delay. So it's like, I'll start smoking weed and I'll just be pushing everything until I quit weed. And then it's like, bam, like, and And like the other part is like people I don't relate to in the same. I don't want to be around people when I smoke weed. I don't understand people that like being high around other people. It's
Right.
For me. It's not the judgment piece. Like I've never mind. Like I still remember like a lady after going to MBTI and I was walking home smoking weed or whatever, or smoking outside the bar, and she's like, "Excuse me, do you have to do that here?" And I'm like, "I'll do it where the fuck I want." Like and like, you know, I used to get ripped on acid and go like walking around like talking to people, whatever. It's like I've never been shameful about it, but like something about weed, I don't like being trying to talk to people and communicate. Like it just
Well,
it's not
do
fun.
you find you're on a different wavelength when you smoke weed? Because that's what it is for me. Is like I can't have conversations with people because my brain is like, if we were having a conversation like we are right now, and you started to talk about something for 30 seconds, in that 30 seconds I'm already way
Right.
somewhere else, and I it's hard for me to then bring myself back and rejoin the conversation at that point, right?
Right. You see, and that's something that's happened with newer people. Like if you're trying to get to know a new person, but what starts to happen to me is my self-judgment goes into like extra time. Like I feel like the worst person ever because I'm not listening, or I didn't hear that thing, or they're going to know that I didn't remember this certain thing,
Right.
or
Yeah.
it just I get super hypercritical. And so I think that's why it's such I'm like, the moment someone leaves, I'm like, I go smoke again. And I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. Because it dulls all emotion and shit. And it's just like, sweet. And then I remind myself like, oh yeah, it's way better to just smoke alone and watch some TV or like eat shit and, you know, whatever.
I 100% agree. That was like when we made cookies out of the oil that you gave us, and or no, not the oil you gave us, some CBD stuff that I made. I told you somehow I got crazy high off it, right?
Yeah.
And Anna was like overjoyed that I was high with her, right? And like I am just a horrible person to be around when I'm high. And she's like, no, that's not true. But I couldn't shake that feeling, right? And it was just, I didn't enjoy being like that around other people. And I don't like it.
But again, is it that self-judgment shit?
Yeah.
Because like
totally.
you're saying, like I'm the worst, whatever. It's like I've actually got that feedback. Do you know what I mean? Like I turn into an asshole. Like I know what my problem is. Like I go like, normally I have a very good sense of, will this joke land with someone, right? Like that's a part of my brain that I use to connect with people, whatever. I know what people are sensitive about and not sensitive about, generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
The moment I'm high, that's like out the window, and my delivery might be wrong. And like, you know, when you say something that you're intending to be funny and it's not said in the correct way, it's just an insult or it's just hurtful. And so like it's not just Vanessa, it's a lot of people where it's just like you're a different person when you're high.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I'm pretty sure I'm an asshole when I'm high too. I haven't gotten that same feedback to confirm it, but I honestly don't need that. I'm so certain, and especially hearing you say that you feel the same way and you have actually gotten feedback only confirms to me that I'm probably an asshole when I'm high.
Maybe.
I think like
I would beg to differ though. I genuinely think there's a very low chance you're an asshole.
If I'm not outwardly an asshole, I'm inwardly, like my brain is more trying to be an asshole. It's just I'm just too nice of a person. I don't know, but I'm certain I am because I feel more abrasive when I'm high, right?
Yeah.
So
that's a great word, abrasive.
Yeah.
I come across as abrasive, which is like, also like weed really does dull my, like whatever you want to call it, aura or joy, playfulness, like all that shit's out the window. It's just like when I'm high, I just want to be like, let's just sit, have coffee, and smoke cigarettes in the sun.
All I can say is I agree, and I don't think that that you probably are as much of an asshole as you think you are, but I think that we both have the same instinct towards it, and we probably should listen to that instinct and say, yeah, it's like for you, because you have a problem with it, you should stay away from it completely. For me, the very least, I should only do it by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the weird thing is like, so I do have a shit ton of edibles, right? Edibles is not the same draw. So like Vanessa pointed this out to me. It's all about the ritual with weed. Yeah. I love rolling. I love smoking. Unlike cigarettes, it doesn't leave a like disgusting smell to me. Like it's like, sure, you can have like a coat that you desperately need to wash or something pretty skunky after a while. But like in general, it's not like when I smoke cigarettes, right? Like I honestly felt ashamed going into people's houses and stuff and being like, fuck, they're going to smell me for hours after I leave. Like, but yeah.
It's weird how nicotine or tobacco rather just sticks to stuff. The smell just sticks. And weed doesn't do that. I don't understand why they're so different. Like there's obviously a chemical reason for that, but yeah, I agree. Like I so miss like rolling joints and just like smoking the joint and it's like every joint kind of burned in a different way, and it was like kind of interesting like it was almost like a story. It's like oh yeah, like the way it would go. Like I miss all that, but I wouldn't smoke a joint now anyways, because inhaling burning plant matter is just so friggin' unhealthy that fuck it, right?
Do you think it's unhealthy?
Oh yeah, totally.
Well, I mean, because like a lot of people's arguments is that it's not.
Well, I would question.
You know, because everyone points to like Willie Nelson and shit, right? It's like, well, he's like 89, and well, I mean, now he's dead probably. But actually, didn't he die from lung cancer?
I don't know. That would be something we could look up, but who cares? Yes, it's unhealthy. Who thinks that it's not unhealthy? That's crazy.
A surprising amount of people.
Yeah, well, like when people talk about this being healthy or unhealthy, you always have to contextualize it, right? Is it healthy compared to smoking cigarettes? Yes, of course. Is it healthy compared to breathing just air? No, it's not. No. Right?
I'm in total agreement. I've had a million arguments with people that if you're combusting anything and inhaling it into your lungs were not designed for that. Like it's not
right. There's thousands of new compounds that are created when you burn an organic thing like a leaf, and those compounds will interact with your body in ways that you don't know, and that it takes lots of science to figure out what actually is going wrong. So and the thing is, it's like we have ways, like in terms of like cigarettes, we have e-cigarettes now, and marijuana, you can vape the bud directly,
it's
right?
So unsatisfying.
It's not as satisfying ritualistically, but you still get high from it.
Not right? The same high though. That was always one of my complaints too, is like, so I think that's why the draw to like edibles and shit like that is it's not that great to me. It's because there's no punch you in the face moment. Right. I know a lot of people don't like that feeling, but it's like for me to feel weed at all, it's only like the first joint I smoke coming back to it. Do you know what I mean? After that, it's just kind of like, like little dealies.
I agree with that. I do agree with that, and it's the same with smoking cigarettes and the e-cigarette. It's totally different, and you can't really capture the magic that you had with that cigarette. But there's a new magic to discover, right? Like when I switched from smoking cigarettes to an e-cigarette, it sucked, but over time I realized how enjoyable an e-cigarette was, and it turned out to be way better than smoking cigarettes.
Why do you enjoy an e-cigarette?
Because you can just keep going. like you can't chain, like some people chain smoke cigarettes, but like holy fuck, right? But you can just keep, like I would just keep vaping until I felt physically ill because I had too much nicotine in my system, right? Because it was like there was no...
That does not appeal to me at all. That does not appeal to me at all to smoke nicotine until I feel ill.
Yeah, but like you can't, you don't have, like, your lungs aren't hurting, your throat isn't being irritated, right? Like it's so much easier.
That was the worst part. Like I was only ever like I would naturally only smoke 4 a day.
Yeah.
So like I had a French roommate eventually who was just like, you didn't smoke. And I was like, what? She's like, my doctor would say you didn't smoke. You only smoked 4 a day.
Are we talking joints or cigarettes?
Cigarettes.
Oh yeah, that's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So like what I didn't recognize is like my friends were the like pack a day, 2-pack a day people.
Yeah.
Trying to keep up with them while drinking, ludicrous. It was like my throat and body so fucked up past like 5. Like I'm just like, and like I never liked the worst part about smoking cigarettes that other people like is like the feeling lightheaded and shit.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. It's like that was the worst part about smoking is that first like 3 months trying to get used to that awful feeling, you know. The pull of nicotine is insane. Like I saw a guy on TikTok smoke and I was like, I realized like, oh yeah, it's not in our TV and shit anymore.
Right.
Because I was like, I remember vividly when I was trying to quit Mad Men I was getting into.
Yeah.
What a difficult show to watch if you're quitting smoking.
Oh,
it's
I
like,
said the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh fuck, I do love Lucky Strikes. You know, like
yeah. It's so, it digs itself in so deep, right? Like I remember doing LSD, and like LSD kind of like disconnects you from like all your bodily needs. Like if you're hungry, you're not hungry anymore, you're not thirsty, like you're in this total space. And then after I started to come down, it's like I started to reconnect with my body basically, and it's like the first thing that came back was the need for a cigarette, right?
Really?
It's like before realizing I was hungry or realizing thirsty, it's like I realized I needed nicotine, right? And I was like, that's crazy that it gets so deep into your brain that it's there before
anything else.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like I remember like often I'd be like, oh, I need to eat. I'd smoke, and then I'd be like, yeah. I'd eat like one meal a day. Like it was like I just would forget. Like it's like and that's also what happens with weed. Like I know for most people it's like they'll start just eating like crazy.
Yeah.
For me it's just like if I smoke, I won't remember to eat for like 4.5 hours. And like if I'm smoking all day, I'll be like, shit, it's 9 p.m. I got to eat something before I go to bed. Like, and that's for me, I have to be eating regularly or it's like I want to pass out and die, you know, like I can't do anything.
Well, going into like these, like I've done a lot of research into health and longevity and stuff like that. And man, smoking is just so bad for you, right? Like tobacco smoking, the science isn't in on marijuana smoking, but I can't see it being that much better.
Right? I think it's just honestly that it hasn't been tested very much.
Yeah.
Like because it's been banned forever. So it's like, that's the problem with that kind of data is like, it's a banned substance that they haven't allowed people to be studying for the last 30, 40 years. So it's like, yeah, just because it doesn't exist yet doesn't mean it won't.
And it's probably difficult, at least it probably was up until a few years ago, to find chronic weed smokers that weren't also smoking cigarettes, right?
That's true.
Those things did kind of go together for a long time.
I never did that. Actually, that's not true. I did it. I remember once getting high. Like I honestly didn't start getting high till I was like regularly until I was 28. Like I maybe had done it 3 times, early 20s.
Yeah.
And like my friends loved to get high and like they loved smoking weed and then finishing and having a cigarette. And I was like, it tasted awful to me. Like I was like, this is awful.
Yeah.
And I think that's why yeah, I eventually separated the two, and it's just like, oh yeah, I just want to have this addiction. It's way cleaner for my, like, I never was under the illusion that smoking something was fine for my lungs,
Right.
but I was like, it is the better alternative to, and I also had thought at the time, like, weed was, I bought into this, like, all the shit around CBD and it's healing my brain and blah, blah, blah. It's like, kind of, but like doing a 2-week bender on acid did way more for me than smoking for 3.5 years.
But I do believe some of the claims, I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm not an expert, but there is people who say, oh, like high amounts of THC can cure cancer, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how true that is, but I think if we were to find out that weed smoking doesn't lead to the same rates of cancer as cigarette smoking, it would be because the THC is like counteracting the negative effects of the weed smoke more so than tobacco smoke does, right?
Right. I mean, my biggest thing, like, I believe in CBD. I don't believe what's out there right now is actually doing what people think it's doing.
Yeah.
Like, I think the placebo effect is having a huge effect on people that don't really know about weed. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's been pushed as a health product, and I feel like there's a lot of people that are in need of health products. Like, they, you know, it's like, I do have crippling anxiety, and like, great, I take this thing and it'll get low. Like, I think there's a huge placebo effect in the same way that, like, we always want the easier option. The more difficult option is to push through your anxiety, learn to deal with your anxiety. Like, do you know what I mean? But like, everyone was just like, yeah, let's get on Ativan. Let's get on.
Yeah.
I was one of these people forever. Right. And then I realized, like, oh yeah, I can't just take pills and have my life be sorted out.
Right.
So anyways, I like the only studies done on CBD basically say that you need to have like 300 or 400 milligrams, and most bottles have like 50 or 100 total in it, and they're telling you to take like 2 teaspoons. So like, I feel like it's regulated snake oil currently, and like someone's going to expose it eventually. But because like, have you smoked CBD?
Yeah, I have.
CBD fucks me up, like, in a way that like weed does not.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, smoking a CBD joint was like, I did not like it. I don't like, my body liked what was happening. My brain did not. It was like, I felt like I was kind of I didn't like it at all.
I don't understand that. I find I can't really smoke weed now if it doesn't have CBD. I need that CBD to like counteract the paranoia that THC gives me. The CBD.
What paranoia happens?
Well, like you were saying, like you say you get hypercritical of yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's that same mechanism, but I guess I won't just be hypercritical of myself. I'll also feel like the world is not as it seems, right? Like, I'll be like, oh, that person on the TV is clearly lying, or, you know, there's this like in a conspiracy level paranoia, right?
Oh, okay.
Can happen, or I'll feel like just an impending sense of doom that I don't really have a reason to feel, but I just feel it. Like, I'm like, something's not right, something is going wrong, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Or like, I'll hear a noise outside my apartment, and it's like, I think, oh, someone's about to bash the door in, right? Like, those,
you have real paranoia.
yeah, those are the kinds of things that can go through my head if I'm smoking THC. CBD sort of like brings that back down to earth.
Well, that's a huge reason why people are critical about the way legal weed is going, is because they're trying to breed out CBD, right? To get the highest possible THC content. Yeah. And it's like, what people aren't understanding is like higher THC doesn't make a more pleasant experience.
Right.
It just doesn't. Like, a person like me wants to do it because I want to go on a little bit of a trip. That's my hope. It never happens. Like, I've never had those, like, the first 2 or 3 times I smoked weed, I was like blackout. Like, I don't remember doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I imagine that's what like dabs and stuff. But most people are just looking for like a chill 10 to 15%, like just very middling high. That's not going to be like they're out of their fucking mind.
Yeah, but that's what we're now have access to with legal weed, right? Where you can actually know the percentage of THC and CBD in what you're buying.
In theory.
Yeah, so like there's going to be these people that want the highest amount of THC possible and they just want to get absolutely blitzed, but there's also a market for people who don't want that, right?
Maybe, but I don't think, like, the problem is it all comes down to margins, right? So the people that are looking for 10 and 15%, they're not fucking chronic. They're just probably not.
True. Yeah.
And so like eventually if that company or whoever's selling that, like people are basically, I remember reading, I wish I remembered this article better, but it's like people are being incentivized to go higher and higher THC because that's where the higher and higher sales are.
Yeah.
Because those are the chronic, people.
That's a good point.
I'm excited to see, like, because weed's becoming an abomination in some sense. Like it's like it's supposed to be the chill drug, but like people that are doing dabs and shit, that's when it gets to being the difference between like coke and cocaine kind of thing. Like it's like, what the fuck is this?
But
Like,
I mean, that happened with black market weed as well, right? Like the first time I smoked weed was like in the 90s, and it was pretty a pretty chill drug, and then it's like you get a dealer and then like every single week he's like, oh man, this new stuff is super strong, and at first you're excited, you're like, great, it's more bang for my buck, right? And then after a while you're just like, whoa, this stuff is a little too strong, right? And it just kept going up and up and up. So the same market forces were at work there too, right?
Because like I think of the people in my, like, that have like tried anything, and it's like they never went back again. Do you know what I mean? Like they got on board because of like fear of missing out or whatever. Right. But it's like they never, like, and I advised them to get like a 10 or 15, and that was like, most of their reports are like, this is how I've always felt about drugs though, is like, if you don't have a natural inclination to wanting to do drugs, why are you starting to do it now? Like you either feel like you want to do it or you don't. Like seniors and stuff getting into it, I don't believe that's their first time ever, generally.
Right. Yeah.
Like they must have gotten fucked up on shit in their 20s or like been raging alcoholics or like something.
Yeah.
I think it's unlikely you've gone your whole, like my brother, for example, is like, I'd like to do mushrooms and shit. And I'm like, you don't want to do you don't want to do this. Like, I get that everyone's talking about mushrooms now, but it's like, you have no natural inclination to want to escape. I feel like people need that wanting to escape.
Yeah. I agree. I think at least in North America, if legalization isn't the thing that makes people try weed. People who are going to smoke weed have already tried it and are already smoking it. I mean, this is a pointless argument now because it's already legal, but had this been a few years ago when people were saying, oh, legalization is going to cause a surge in marijuana use, we all knew that was false, right? It was like, no, it's so accessible already that anyone who has the personality that would smoke weed is already smoking it. And
kind of you do forget how hard it is for like ages. It took me ages to get in, like finding a dealer. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone else made it sound so easy. You just go to a mall, you just whatever.
Right.
That was never my experience. It was only like once I came to Calgary and I was like, okay, let's shop around, like Craigslist, people like this, figure out who's got the best stuff. Just continue to see them, right?
Right.
But like, it wasn't like a person like Vanessa is not looking on Craigslist to meet up with a weird dude that's going to drive to his house. So like,
true.
But this is why I thought, and I think the stats kind of bear this out, but it's like, there's an initial uptick with people wanting to try edibles, see how that, but eventually it's like, oh yeah, I wasn't determined enough to get weed prior.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it's available, it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's fun, but like
Whatever,
they never had
right?
that drive for drugs.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I mean, in the is it the Netherlands that it was legal?
Portugal.
Yeah, which
Everything.
one had?
Oh, Amsterdam, it's legal in cafes.
Yeah, so in Amsterdam, they had a lower rate of use of marijuana than the United States had, even though it was legal in the United States. And what they said is the reason why is because it wasn't cool for kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because after a while, it's just like old people with arthritis that are smoking weed, and the kids are like, they don't want that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that could very well happen here, right? Where
I think there might be another explanation though. They also sold mushroom truffles until like 2 years ago. And like, we know mushrooms cure a lot of people of their addiction or want of addiction, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's very good for alcoholics specifically. So I don't know, maybe, yeah, everyone was like, psychedelics are the shit. Like, why fuck with weed? It's just kind of this.
Well, and like we were saying before, weed is not a social lubricant, right? It's not going to inhabit the same space that like alcohol inhabits.
Some people think so, though.
I question those people.
Well, I mean,
that.
like we were talking about Joe Rogan. Like Joe Rogan clearly thinks it's great to get high with friends and talk.
Yeah.
To me, those are some of the worst podcasts I've ever heard. But like, they seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But it doesn't like it's. I think it inhabits a similar space to coffee, right? Like coffee is a social lubricant in the same sense where you can get together with some friends and have a coffee, but it's not the kind of social lubricant that makes you loose and go out and meet new people and maybe say things that you would otherwise not say. It doesn't.
Right.
You don't lose your inhibitions, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, amongst friends, it might have that effect, but it'll never inhabit the same space as alcohol. I firmly believe that. I think it's much more like a coffee type drug. I mean, it's a versatile drug in the sense that it has lots of different uses, but it definitely doesn't have that one. That's what I'll say.
I think if anything, the legalization of weed is going to make drinking go off the charts, because like I had an experience where like I got fucked up at this like we had this like private club thing, right? And I just decided today's the day that I'm just going to get hammered for whatever reason, because it was just free whiskey. And so I was just getting absolutely hammered, but I wanted to test the CBD theory. So like I smoked CBD prior to getting hammered. Then I smoked one like while I was hammered, and then I smoked one in the morning. I never had a hangover. And like, to me, if they start infusing true amounts of CBD into, like, this is why I wanted to invest, for example, in like Molson's one or whatever, is because I knew that like alcoholism is going to go through the roof if there's no downside.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brave new world. Like, who knows what kind of systems are going to be in place to like increase our substance use, right? Like, have you heard about NAC?
I don't think so.
It's N-acetylcysteine, and it's a precursor to glutathione in the liver, and that it has that same effect as well. You can take it like 3 hours before going drinking, and you won't have as bad a hangover the next day.
Does it help your liver process stuff or no?
I don't know the exact mechanism, but it does work. Like the one thing I've noticed is that you also the pleasant effects of alcohol are diminished as well. So like for me, like I'm already buzzing after like 2 beers.
Yeah.
But I've been taking NAC, and the last time I was drinking, I think, was the Discord chat, and 2 beers, I felt nothing, right? But I also slept fine, and woke up the next day as though I hadn't been drinking. So,
I wish there was something for me to I can just have a sip of alcohol and it's like I'll have a headache for sure the next day. Like it's not even. Yeah. I'll have it starting by the end of the night. Do you know what I mean?
I nearly guarantee you, if you pick some of this NAC up, and you can get it literally anywhere, you have to take it. You don't want to take it right before you drink. You want to take it 3 to 4 hours before you start drinking. But if you do that, you won't have that problem.
I'll have to try it out. Because I like one of my things I'm definitely going to go back to doing once COVID's over is going to the bar just by myself every Saturday or whatever.
Yeah.
And just seeing what happens. Like wild shit happens when you just go to like I don't go to many places alone, but when you do, it's like, oh shit, right? The environment just like comes to you.
Yeah, that's true.
Most people wouldn't like it, but I like it. It's like, so if nothing happens, I'm perfectly happy just watching the TV and like catching up on sports. Like I always like seeing sports, and that's always what's on at bars. And it's like, I don't care what it is. It's like, that will like just getting drunk and watching sports is great. But inevitably there's always people that are like, oh, this is a new person. Let's go talk. Or I don't know. Anyways, that's my experience when I go to
bar. We talked, I think, before about body language in terms of like being more inviting, right?
Yeah, like right now, this is terrible body language.
Yeah. Well, we have to lean forward to
like at a bar. And the moment I have a half a glass, I'm a different person. Like it is. There's no anxiety. I sit open. I'm like inviting people to come have a conversation. And when you have terrible ones, like that's something I'm good at navigating. Like it's just like, oh shit, I gotta go make a phone. You like whatever. Like I'm good at like I don't get trapped by like a person like Vanessa gets trapped into hearing an old man's story for like 45 minutes. Like that doesn't. I'm like fuck off. I'm out of here. Like
yeah.
Why? Like I get that. Like you want to talk to someone, but I'm not your person today. Like I want an actual back and forth, not a monologue. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. But yeah, you almost certainly have that effect when you go to the bar, because I don't have that experience at all when I go to a bar. But that's probably because my body language isn't telling people, hey, come here, come talk to me. So
yeah, well, if you sit at the bar with your shoulders slumped forward and like just look like down at your glass
as we're sitting right now.
Yeah, exactly.
But like what's interesting is that's another thing I dislike about weed is weed somehow changes my body language to make me more inviting. So what happens is when I'm high as hell and I'm in public, that's when people start talking to me.
Oh.
And it's like that's the worst time to talk to me. But it's like it's like neighbors, for example, was always a tough one, because it's like I would like say live in an apartment building and there's neighbors around, and we never really ever had a conversation. But then I'd need to run to the store because I'm high and I need munchies or something. That's when all of a sudden I get stopped by a neighbor and they want to start talking to me, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, right? So,
it is, but I think we have a different reaction to it. I always found it funny.
Really? Yeah.
I always found it funny. Like I was always just kind of like, yeah, because that kind of like, for me, the crushing judgment is from people I know. Mm-hmm. So like if someone, a stranger, thinks I'm high and fucked up and whatever, it's like, great, they won't talk to me next time.
Right.
Like I'm just thinking of the benefits. I'm just like, oh, thank fuck, they're never gonna do this again, because I'll be like, have you ever thought what would happen if we bred turtles with whatever? It's like I don't want to be a part of this conversation ever again. It's like, great. I
don't know. I think if you brought that conversation up, you might actually get people interested and like, breeding turtles. Yeah, that's
not when you're fucked
maybe
up.
Not.
Because again, it's like I'm not giving off the delivery. Everything will come out wrong. So like I maybe normally be able to engage someone about a conversation about turtles breeding with a weird thing, But like when I'm high, I'll just be like, hey man, you ever heard about turtles? Like I'll say like the wrong combination of words and they'll be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, cause like my brain breaks for whatever reason with weed. Like it's just, conversation is like basically impossible for me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. But I also like, I want to make those, like if someone comes up and talks to me, unless they're just a complete like douchebag, in most cases, like I want to actually do what I can to make that connection happen, right?
Oh, no. Awful.
Yeah, well, I think maybe for you, it because it happens more often, you're less likely to want to. But for me, it's it's actually kind of a rare situation to have someone, a stranger, come up and talk to me. So I'm actually more curious about where that could lead, right?
Right.
So,
it's literally every time I go out in public.
yeah.
So like I've only been outside once this week, and it was to shovel, and I was throwing down salt. By the way, this is what I wanted to bring up with you as well. I fucking hate these people that just say a comment that they think is funny, and I have to respond. So like, for example, this neighbor was like, feeding the chickens, eh? And I'm just like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? And like, I actually,
what is that?
And I'm like, I actually did come up with something, which was surprising to me. Usually it's one of those situations where it's like they get in their car, drive away, and I'm like, oh, I should have said whatever.
Yeah.
I actually said something to connect with him. What I wanted to say is like, fuck you, pal. Like, just fuck you. Like, I hate those kind of like throwaway comments. It's like, just say, hey, how's it going? Or anything else. Like, I hate when people think they're saying something that's, I don't know what that impulse is what I'm saying.
I know what you're talking about. I see that a lot where it's like a really lame joke that this person is saying, and it's like, you don't have the energy to pretend that it's funny. So it's like, what do you do in that circumstance?
Right. That is the issue.
Yeah. You're just like,
because it forces me to be inauthentic. And I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, it's like, I wanted to say like, you know, I wanted to do nothing, but the problem is I'm too like seeking of other people's approval. I don't want to be that guy that just like
stone faces them.
Yeah. Just like,
whereas I will, if someone, a stranger comes up to me and cracks a joke that is just, I don't find funny, I will just look at them with no expression and say, well,
and I can't do that. I'm too generous. Like I'm a generous laugher guy. Like I'm like, it feels too painful. Like I would feel.
Yeah. Well,
like I'm hurting somebody by doing that.
But don't you find that like your laugh in those circumstances is just so obviously fake? Like, aren't you self-conscious about your ability to muster a fake laugh at all?
No, like that's the thing. I don't. It's a natural response to like do a little giggle or whatever to go along. Like, because that's the thing. Like, it depends on the environment too, right? Like, so like people at MBTI would crack a joke that's like lame or whatever. But it's different when a person acknowledges what they're saying is lame, like with a wry smile or something. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? This guy said it with full sincerity, like, oh, feeding the chickens. And I was like, I want you to die. I want you to die right now because it's just like, it's not funny. Yeah. It's not like, there's so many other things you could have said. Why this? Like,
yeah, well, I mean, for me, I've let my laugh reflex kind of atrophy, if that makes any sense. Like I was noticing this the other day that I don't laugh at comedies on TV anymore, right? Even if I find them funny, I just sit there and
I had a friend like that. I was like, what a fucking psycho. Yeah. I like,
that's me.
Yeah. That's insane to me. Like that, like, I can rewatch, like I'm rewatching Curb right now. And it's like, it has me laughing like literally out loud a lot because it's just, it's so like, it's so what what I want to do in public. Like, I want to be as whatever as Larry. But just like in this situation, I worry about hurting people too much. So if I stonewalled that guy, I would then think about it for the next like day and a half, 2 days, be like, fuck, my neighbor hates me. I would just ruminate on it. It becomes fodder for my mind to latch on to about what a shitty person I am, right? And so it's like I can't behave poorly to people in unless they've actively done something that's just pissed me off, and it's like it's that switch in me that's just like, oh, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, and in most cases, you and I are on the same level when it comes to like neuroses. But in that particular situation, I would just blame that person for putting us in that circumstance. It's like, fuck you. You said this lame joke, made it awkward for both of us. That's on you, buddy, not on me.
And I agree with you in principle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wish that, like, acknowledging that this is their fault for making this terrible joke. But again, I'm going to figure out a reason why it's my fault that they said like that.
Yeah.
That it's my fault. It makes no sense. I didn't engage this person. They just, I just looked up. That's all. You're absolutely right that it just happens to me all the time. And so it's like, I really don't want to connect with everyone because it really does drain me.
Yeah.
It doesn't energize me like some people. Like I've had really extroverted friends, and like when they connect with the barista, whatever, they're just like, wow, like that was amazing. What a great time. Whereas I'm just like, fuck, that was painful. Like usually it's like conversation I don't want to be having, right? About mundane shit. And it's just like, that's not what interests me.
Yeah, I can totally see that. It's supply and demand, right? If you have too much of a thing, you value it less, and then you get to the point where it's too much, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be circumstances where you can shift the signal from the noise, and you do actually meet a stranger that you connect with, and you're like, wow, I'm really glad I talked to you today.
Yeah. I mean, my the guy that like I like left a second cup like after a date, and I asked this like stranger who, again, he probably has people constantly introducing themselves to him because he's this big jovial 6'5" dude, right? He's just he's hard to miss. And I was like, is that a dead body? And he was like, what? Where's a dead body? Like, wanted to investigate, right? So that's like my literal only real world experience of meeting a friend that wasn't like adjacent to another friend. So I would say like that's a 1 in a million time. Like I know most, and that's also what's frustrating to me about these little interactions. It's like I would have rather we connected on a more real level rather than this like chicken joke thing, so that I could actually be like, oh, that's Gary. He's my fucking neighbor. And maybe we'll hang out. Do you know what I mean? Like I need to have that fantasy that it might go to something more. Otherwise it's like, why are you wasting my time?
Well, we can run a workshop. I can show you how to have body language that keeps people away.
No, that's the thing. I used to have that body language. I don't actually want that, because when I used to just have a like, don't fuck with me face in Vancouver, it makes me feel more isolated and alone, because like generally speaking, if you go out and you have pleasant interactions, it's a way of grounding you in the present. You're like, I mean, for me anyways, it's like, I don't have this narrative of like, you're a piece of shit running, because it's like, well, no, when you go interact with people, like for example, like McDonald's, right? When I go through the drive-through, you can tell that I'm the first person that's been like polite to them in that way the whole day. Like they're excited to have me pull up. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like it's a different experience. And it's like that, tells you like it goes against my inner narrative. Like,
yeah, that's a good thing. I think that the world is genuinely a brighter place if people are more inviting and polite and friendly and things like that. So if you have that, don't get rid of it, for sure. how you stop the masses, the unwashed masses, from constantly wanting to talk to you and things like that. I don't know.
I just wish I was better at differentiating what type of people I'm interacting with. Like I actually have, again, so the body language thing, it's like I can tell if a person is being genuine or not. Like that's a thing that, like, you know, like that's one reason like I blasted through different psychologists, is because I was like, you're a different person when you're at home. Like like stop pretending, like fucking swear with me. Like you're not, whatever this is not, you know,
Yeah.
like your reality. And like I can't tell, again, with the dating thing, right? It's like I have absolute blinders on in a way that I wouldn't with a friend. So it's like, and I don't know if that's just a lust thing, like you push out like what you don't want to hear because you desperately want to fuck the person.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But like yeah, like it Finesse has pointed this out to me, that it's just like I have blinders on for people for the first while, and it's just like once it's over, it's like, oh, how did I not see that?
I mean, I think that's common. I think I'm the same way.
But do you have it with strangers?
No, I mean, I definitely don't have it with male strangers. There is, like, with women, particularly ones that would be attractive, it's obviously a very different equation that occurs in my head, right?
Yeah.
But it's just so infrequently that I've had an actual conversation with attractive women on the street that I almost would never even try to find patterns in the number of times that's occurred to me. So whereas like I've had lots of conversations with strange men that have come up that, in almost unanimously, it was not fun, right?
Yeah. Well, but is that because, like, I know for me, it's like, again, if there's no chance this is going to be a sexual thing, it's like, you're very unlikely to be my new best friend as a guy.
Right.
Like maybe, but very unlikely, right? It's usually dudes that are like absolutely starved for conversation.
Right.
And they're not like, you know, we do have a societal issue with, like, you know, recluse dudes who don't have much of a social circle, right? And
that's true. Yeah.
They are unleashed on the.
Yeah.
I used to probably be one of these people. Like.
Yeah.
And so.
I mean, I went cycling. I took I think it was 10 days, and I cycled up to Jasper and back by myself, and like no technology really, because I couldn't keep anything charged. And it was like at some point I flipped, and I was like trying to talk to strangers because I had just been so isolated for days on end.
Wait, how long did you go?
I think it was like 10 days total.
Okay. Yeah.
But it would have been like 5 or 6 days in. It was like I was stopping at like viewpoints to rest, and if other people were there, I would go up and say, "Hey, what's going on?" Right? Because I'm so very opposite of the type of person that would do that sort of thing. But even I have my limits. Like at some point, I need to connect with someone, right? So. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like I used to just go on walks just to have a face-to-face, like, smile, hey, how are you today? Yeah. Kind of interaction. That was enough. Like that was enough at the time when I first moved back to the city, because it was like, yeah, I'd go out to like meetups and shit to meet people, but it's like that still wasn't enough. Like if you don't have people, it's not enough. And so you do find yourself like going to your local coffee shop and like talking to your barista or.
Yeah. And then that begs the question. It's like, if you live in a city and you've been there a certain amount of time and you still are so starved for attention, it's like, what kind of person are you? And it's like, do I want to talk to those people? Right. Like that's the kind of people that are going to approach you on the street. Right?
Yeah. Well, and that's always the complicated thing for me, because it's like I am that person generally that will go talk to the awkward person. Like I will jump on that grenade. This has been the past. Be that person that like knows who the fucking awkward person is at a party, and I will go jump on that grenade because it's like I know I'll be able to relate to them, have them talk to me about, you know, whatever fucking hobby they're into and hyper focused on, and don't realize they're talking to me about it for 40 minutes. Right. But it's not pleasant.
Yeah, but it's a different class of individual that's like the awkward person at a party versus the kind of person that immediately kills the party the moment they walk in because they're just so completely unsocialized, right?
Yeah.
Like those are the kind of people you might end up talking to on the street, right?
I immediately had a guy come to mind that just sucked the life out of a party. The moment he was there, he's just like, nobody likes me.
Right.
He was like literal strong sad. Did you remember
Strong Bad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Strong Sad was the guy, like the fat character that was like,
oh, I don't.
Nobody likes me.
I don't. I didn't watch that enough.
Okay. Anyways, he was that guy. Just like he was clearly so depressed, right? But like nobody. Yeah, it's weird because it's like I think about this a lot because it's like I know for sure I was a guy that shared too much at a party in the past, right? Like I was too vulnerable, whatever. But there's no way I was ever that guy that's like, nobody likes me. I'm all alone. Like I never had that lack of social awareness. Like that's a different level. And like, does that person need compassion? Do they just need people like to continue listening? Or do they need someone to actually address it and be like, dude, you sound depressed. Like you're here at a party and you're telling it like, this isn't what people want to hear. Like they don't want to connect. They don't know you. They don't. Yeah. How do you feel about that? Do you think you should address it?
I mean, I had a thought that, I think, there's definitely those kind of people. And I mean, that's unfortunate that those people exist and they shouldn't go to a party. Like, yeah, you should get out of the house. But if you're to that level, you need professional work done before you're ready to try something like a party, right?
Yeah.
Like a party is a pressure cooker circumstance. That is a almost an extreme situation. There's also people that are just dull and boring, and it's like you can't really get anything out of them, right? And that to me is more frightening when I talk to people. Finding the crazy depressed person might kind of be interesting to talk to, but there's people that just seemingly have nothing going on in their head, and it's like it's impossible to figure out what to talk to them about, right?
Yeah.
So
I've been talking to my parents for 35 years now, so I'm pretty practiced with those type of people that are just like, weather's coming up. It's like, oh, good Lord.
Right,
like,
right.
We're in this now, you know.
I work like there's interesting people where I work, but they're not the majority, right? Like you were saying before about a certain type of people that get office jobs, and it's like, you know, I was actually thinking a lot about that this week because I'm going through this. They wanted us to go on this training course for this performance monitoring software, and it's super boring to be trained on the software. But it's like, so we're in this conference, a Zoom call where we're learning this software, and it's just like mind-numbingly boring. And there's people in that Zoom call that seemingly are into it, right? Like they're actually interested in what they're being shown. And it's like,
you don't think they're faking it, like putting it on to impress a boss? I always come back to incentives. I'm like, what's the incentive for a person to be hyper engaged in a boring training program?
They might be just, it might be theatrics, but even then that's not exactly the kind of person that I want to interact with. If they're that invested in making it look like they actually care about something, right?
Right. Yeah, I get that. Like I'm I'm thinking specifically to one of my friends. I remember him complaining about a guy that he works with, like same level, but this guy was just constantly sucking up, constantly.
Yeah. There's those people, and I don't like those people at all, right?
Yeah.
Like someone. I mean, if someone is kissing ass a lot, but they're an interesting person, I'll look past it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not so much of a slight against me that I'm not gonna like the person.
Right.
But if someone just has nothing for me to hook into, then there's no point. Right?
You were thinking about it this week, but did you come to any conclusion about it?
Yeah, I was just thinking is like the type of person that would actually be interested in this training course that we're on must be the kind of person that's so incredibly dull that this is actually engaging to them.
What do you think is dull?
Yeah, well, like someone who doesn't have a rich inner world, right? Or yeah, well, essentially that. Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe I'm just very ineffective at getting into to pull people's personality out of them.
Yeah.
But it just seems to me like some people are just so like empty, right?
Yeah. But I do see it differently, because I'm like, I don't think people are empty. I just think some people are really fucking walled off.
Yeah.
And like, I find those people extremely frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
So like this is why, like, I know there's shit going on, but it's like, I haven't cracked the code yet.
But are there people out there? Like, I don't know. I just feel like there are some people who don't, it's like their personality fits too well with what society says a person should be like, for me to believe that they have any kind of individualism going on underneath, right? Like they just check all the boxes.
You're talking about people that are into sports. They go to work, they come home, and they watch baseball every day.
Yeah. I mean, sports is a tough one for me for sure.
Yeah.
But like you like sports, and I don't.
I used to.
Yeah, but
I mean, I still do, but I don't watch anything actively anymore.
Yeah, I've had friends that were into sports, and as long as they don't try to talk to me about it, it doesn't bother me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're incapable of talking about anything else, then that seems problematic.
That's an interesting topic on its own. Is, do you feel like you have to listen to a partner or a friend that wants to talk to you about something that you have no interest in?
I think it's up to the person to make it interesting. To the person who's saying the thing, right? Like if you want to talk to me about sports, you got to frame it in some way.
Yeah.
That I can jive with, right?
Yeah. Which is why I've probably just never brought it up, because it's like, I haven't thought of anything that's like, oh, this would intrigue Jason to talk about. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's also because I don't need to. Like, nothing about me says I'm hyper focused on one thing.
Right.
Like, I'm scatterbrained. So it's like, but I have people that, like, I've had issues with where they are like, you know, I listened to you talk about this. Why won't you? And it's like, well, no, you never expressed that you didn't want it to talk. Like, I'm happy to not talk to you about X thing. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to hear about crafting. Like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, but it's not the topic that's the problem. It's the way the person is presenting the topic, right? Like if you just lay into details about crafting, right? It's not interesting. You need to make it relatable.
Okay, but so take someone's day to day. Like, that's what I've always struggled with in relationships, is when someone tells me, friend or otherwise, actually, just, you know, I had a scheduling appointment I had to schedule. I was on call last night from 12 to. I immediately just want to be like, I don't care. Right. I don't care about this at all. Like, it is, details bother me, if anything. Like, I don't think you can frame a day, because most of our days are just like,
Yeah, but I mean, I literally just told you about my work day, but it was in the context of boring and uninteresting people, right?
yes.
And so that's something you can relate to, right? If we were just having a conversation about how I had a training course today, you would not be interested at all. But because I made it relatable,
Yeah.
maybe you weren't interested in that particular detail, but you could still engage in the conversation, right?
Yeah. But like, say you wanted to share, but maybe this is just a compatibility thing, because we communicate in a way that doesn't bore me, right? Like, whereas maybe it's just a thing that I have to get better at sensing with people, where it's just like, if I'm having a hard time listening, maybe we're not a good fit.
Yeah, well, I think some people, they're not trying to make it interesting. They just want to say something. Like that's, I know a lot of people like that, like where they'll call me up, and it's not about having a conversation with me. They just want to make noises
Tell you
towards me, right?
Yeah.
You know, and they don't care that I'm barely listening, and they must know,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm not really offering much feedback, but yet they still talk. So
Right. See, I'm for sure that guy, but I also pick up if another person is not into it.
I think that was mine.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's the same thing with dreams, right? And I think we talked about this before, and it's like I can't stand hearing someone tell me their dream. Right? It's so like, it's like they don't understand. They were experiencing the dream. They have the visuals to recollect.
Yeah.
To make it interesting for them, but I don't have that. So it's like you gotta do more to make the dream interesting for me to hear. Right.
I feel like I've talked to you about dreams though.
Yeah, well, so the way to tell someone about a dream is to give them a synopsis, a broad overview synopsis first.
Yes.
Don't just start with the details. And so many people do that. They're
I'm
like,
with you.
"Oh, I had the craziest dream. Like I was driving to the store, and then I saw my grandma."
Yeah.
And it's like, no, tell me like the full narrative, like the full meta narrative of the story first, then go into the details.
It's
right?
like how stand-up presents itself, right? Like,
Yeah.
you give the overall like, oh man, I fucking crashed my car the other week, and then you get like, it's like, then you go into detail. I feel like I might do that with dreams, actually.
Yeah, like it's like you can do the same thing for work, right? You could say something like, have you ever met those people that just like try to take credit for other people's work? Because today at work I was talking to so and so, blah blah blah, right? Then it's orders of magnitude more interesting at that point if you just make a relatable comment to the person, right?
See, and that's something I'm actually obsessed with trying, like, or focused on, is getting better at being like good at storytelling.
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact, like, those little hooks and tricks really do engage people in a way that it's like, okay, they're not having to listen to me now, they're actually wanting to listen to me, right? And there's a massive difference there.
Yeah, some people, I don't understand why they don't try that. It's like they're just unaware that other people aren't interested in what they're saying, or they don't care.
Well, this goes back to the direct communication thing. Like, would you say to someone, like, I'm bored by what you're like, I'm thinking specifically to a argument I got into, because I actually just told the person, I'm bored with what you're saying.
Oh,
they were really hurt by that. Because would you address it?
I've tried before and it didn't go over well.
Yeah. It's a very sensitive topic.
My mom one time was talking to me about some health problems that a coworker was having, and I was like, Mom, I don't care about your coworker. and she was not happy to hear that, right?
Well, see, I'm with you though. The third party thing, it's like I look and like that person feels like, well, this person is important to me. Like you should care by it's like, but I don't.
Right.
I literally don't know this person. I don't care.
Like for me, like specifically, health problems are hard for me to hear about in general, because like it just sucks, right? Like if someone tells me, yeah, I had a heart attack, and it's like it reminds me of our frail bodies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if it's someone that I care about, fine. But if you're telling me about the fact that someone you know has cancer, it's like you're bringing this horrible topic to me for no reason. I don't know this person. I don't care about them. There's no reason for you to tell me.
I mean, their reason is they need to tell someone to feel good. Like,
yeah. So then again, you got to frame it that way. You say, I'm really struggling right now. I'm really feeling sad because my friend, I found out my friend has cancer. And then all of a sudden, now I'm interested, right?
Yeah.
Because now it's more about your ability to deal with it.
But not everyone has your ability to, like, you are good at that, right?
Mm.
Like you're naturally good at being engaging. Like like I would be more like, hey, did you hear this person has cancer? Like I would be that person that just delivers that in a,
yeah.
But it's also like, I'm willing to move on immediately.
Yeah, like as long as like you either can read the room and realize people aren't engaged and you move on, or you're okay with people saying it and you don't get offended, that's fine too, right?
Yeah. I'm very unlikely. Like if I was sharing a story about even my brother, and you were like, I don't know your brother, I'd be like, that's fair.
Fair enough, right?
Like I don't, like I would never, that would never offend me. It'd be like, I mean, it's unlikely I would be telling you about my brother in general. Like,
yeah. But it is that whole direct communication. Like if I'm saying something that's boring, I would much rather people say to me, yeah, the thing you're talking about is uninteresting. And
that would crush me.
That would crush me? Yeah.
For sure. Because it's like I try to be interesting. Like I really do put effort into how I communicate, right?
Yeah.
I'm paralyzed by the feeling of being that boring guy, right? So it's like I do want someone to say like, I'm bored with this topic. Like that's it's like cool. That won't offend me, but it's like, again, going back to the how you communicate. If it's just like you're boring or this story is boring, it's like that's like address the.
I think the mere. So we were literally just talking about boring people. So I don't want to go and say nobody's boring and that it's only the circumstance that's boring. But I think if you're the kind of person who's telling a story, you're de facto not a boring person. You might be telling the story in a way that is boring, and that's something you need to work on. But the mere fact that you're willing to actually give a story to someone, you're already making enough of effort that you shouldn't be considered a boring person, right?
Yeah, but like extrapolate to that to like a house mom with a dog.
Yeah.
She's gonna be boring as fuck telling a story about.
Yeah, well, that's just a deficit in her skill at telling stories. It doesn't make her a boring person. A boring person doesn't have any stories to tell, right?
Right.
That, at least in my opinion. I mean, maybe. I mean, I guess that I could be wrong on that. Like, there could be people who have complete nothing stories that you just cannot make interesting, but I can't imagine what those would be.
I mean, okay, going back to your work thing. So if I talk to people from your work and they start getting too in depth about shit, what do you do when people get too in depth about something you don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about? Like because like I've pride myself in knowing a little bit about a lot.
Yeah.
But when people like start talking to me about like really high, like technical shit, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. How do you navigate that? Because I'm not patient enough to just be like, oh yeah. Because again, I feel inauthentic. Like,
Well, it depends on the circumstance. If I'm comfortable with the people, I might say that. I might say, "Hey, I'm really lost on this conversation." If I'm not comfortable with people, I'll probably just zone out and not pay attention to what they're saying.
But you don't feel bad about it.
No, I don't.
See, and that's
feel
the
bad.
thing. I feel shitty about it, not listening, even if someone's talking to you about how an engine is constructed. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's like, this is the most painful conversation I've been a part of, but I don't know how to, because it's not one of those like, oh, I got a phone call kind of situations. It's like, usually if I'm that in depth with someone, it's like we're at MBTI or
Yeah.
I'm trying to, like, fuck me. Some of the people at MBTI were some of the worst conversations I've ever had in my
Oh,
life,
really?
without question.
Yeah.
Like, again, the maybe unsocialized, but it's also just like, yeah. Oh my god.
I would suspect that if you're in a conversation with someone and it's so you can't pay attention because what they're saying is completely out of your depth, they're probably used to that circumstance, right?
But I feel like most people have more patience than me, and they probably don't. Like, I often give people, I'm always that first guy that gives them a person an opinion,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, like, because I do just kind of like, at some point I'm like, okay, I don't understand what you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
I am that guy. I will get too impatient and I'll be like, I need to end this. I don't even care if this person's mad at this point. I can't hear more about how an airplane wing is built.
Yeah.
Like, this is the worst conversation I've ever been in. And like, INTJs, right? Holy fuck. Yeah, maybe it's just the ones I talk to, but they were the definition of boring to me. Like, there was no way to connect in a way that was meaningful. And it honestly made me think of that. I think it was Seinfeld. They had like a slow talker
Yeah.
episode.
Right.
It drives me fucking crazy to talk to people that are really measured. Like,
Yeah,
really
I know.
measured, but boring. That's
Right.
the key, right? You can talk slow with me, but you have to, again, be engaging.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to be saying something I want to hear. Like, I had a friend that used to talk to me about philosophy, and so obviously he didn't like whip through it,
Yeah.
right? But I was so engaged. Yeah, I shut the fuck up for a long time, right?